You need to use the
She hasn't got the microphone muted. Is ours muted?
No.
She said she had the mic.
No, she said.
Just uploading the. Again, if people could nod or thumbs up if you can see the presentation on your screen.
They're saying, can you ask if people have got the sound on?
Can everyone please turn their sound off?
Hey, man, in my office.
Sit me talk, please.
So you should now all be muted and only should be able to hear me.
Hold on.
Okay, so we're going to get started. Everyone should be muted now. So we're going to get started. So welcome to our Year 7 information evening. Obviously we can't do this in person, so this is our virtual information evening. Mr. Cavan and I are here to take you through some bits that go on in and around the academy and some things that we thought we would share with you. So to start with, I'd just like to go through our mission statement. So this is our mission statement as an academy, which is preparing every student to be a pillar of any community. Everything that we do here at APA is striving to ensure that every student, when they leave APA or stay with us at the end of year 11, are able to be a pillar of any community. This is evident in all of our systems and our routines and our culture and ethos at the academy. So we just thought we would remind you of that before moving forward. We have 4 values here at APA, which I know that you would have seen before. So our first value is an appreciation and curiosity for life and learning, the courage and ambition to unlock their full potential, a desire to contribute to society in a positive way, a sense of self-awareness combined with the integrity to be compassionate towards others. The reason that we have these 4 values is so that as a staff body and as a student body and as a community, we can work together to ensure that your children engage with all 4 values. We want them to be able to understand and identify all 4 values in every aspect of their life here at school and when they go out into the community. Mr. Cavan is now going to talk to you a little bit about his vision for the year group.
Hi there, everyone. It's lovely to see so many of you today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to hold this meeting with us. Hopefully, most of you will know me already, but for those of you that don't, my name is Mr. Cavan, and I am head of Year 7. And really, I wanted to outline the ethos we share as a year group. Before we all started in September, I took some time and with Miss Bucock, the assistant head of year, we spoke about what do we need to do to get the children to understand that school is a really, really important journey. And we broke that down into 3 main steps. So all the time, as a year team, so the tutors, the assistant head of year and myself in assemblies, we'll be talking to your children, the students, about ambition, that need and want to really achieve and better yourself, and to develop this idea of resilience. So even when you're finding things hard, to keep working through that and keep working towards your ambitions, and ultimately to have choices. When we were having that conversation, we wanted to communicate to the students that it doesn't really matter what you finally decide to do in your life, but ultimately when you leave school, you need to have been armed with ambition, resilience, so that you can make good choices. So you will hear me refer to that throughout the next 5 years, and it's something that I think is really important that we share as a year group.
Thank you, sir. So just with bearing that in mind, you now have a real drive, and you have Mr. Cavan and Miss Bucock behind you and behind your children as a year group, ensuring that they make the right choices. But obviously at the times that we're in at the moment, things are slightly different. So this picture I'd like to show you is a picture of APA of the playground before COVID-19 came to the nation. So it's really important that we get back to this. So what we'd like to do is that we're going to talk you through a few things that we're doing here at APA, which I know Miss Downey will have told you about in letters and you may have heard about through your children, but we just thought it'd be really important to reassure you as families and to ease any anxieties to make in when it comes to your children, keeping them safe and keeping our staff safe. So Mr. Cavanagh's just going to talk to you about the two main things that are our drives.
And I think it's really important as well that we have this shared language. I think when we are having conversations with you as parents and the students are coming home to you saying how their school has been, or how the school day has been, sorry, I think it's very important that we share the same language, that you understand how their school day has gone. So the first key instruction we always remind our students to have is to remember their tone, their time, and their place. So when they're having interactions in secondary school, we're starting to prepare them for the outside world, for adult life, and they need to be thinking about how they're having those interactions with each other and with adults and staff members. So how they are speaking, their tone, the time, is it an appropriate time to have that conversation, and also the place. It might be very polite and you might think it's the right time, but is it the right location to be asking that question? So every day we'll be reminding the students about their tone time, and it'd be really useful as well if you could have those conversations with students at home.
That tone time place is not just for during COVID times, just to remind you and to make you aware. Tone time place is something that we have rolled out throughout the academy for all year groups. So I'm sure if you have other children at the academy, or if your son or daughter have siblings here, they will have heard it before. And as Mr. Cavan quite rightly pointed out, it is really important for us to support your children in making the right choices in when and how they have potentially challenging conversations. On the right hand side of the screen, you can see our 5 key rules for social distancing. I'm pretty sure that if after this meeting you asked your child if they could recite them off by heart, they would be able to, because they are reminded of these at the end of every lesson. I know that you as parents have also been told, but just to remind you, the 5 ways that we're ensuring that your children are safe here at school is adhering to the 1 metre rule, making sure that your child stays in their bubble, going straight home at the end of the day, walking single file on the corridor, and washing their hands at every opportunity. We'd now just like to quickly remind you, and Mr. Cavan's going to remind you about the importance of your child and their lanyard.
So not long after starting at school, we rolled out the lanyards as part of our policy to keep the children safe. And this is a really useful way of being able to identify a child and where they're supposed to be at different times. So our coloured lanyard is yellow, and the students should really be wearing that at all times. Ideally, when they leave the house, it should be on them, making sure they have it just like they have their zip card for getting the bus or any other piece of equipment, but they must have it every single day. On the screen now, you might be able to see, or hopefully you'll be able to see, an aerial view of the school site. And in that pink box is a dedicated area for Year 7. So when the students are coming home and they're saying that this happened at lunch, or at lunch they play football, or we've recently been running relays, this is where they are doing that. And it's a very large space. We've actually been quite fortunate that we've got a really nice varied space, and it's exclusively for Year 7. So when we're saying stay in your bubble, it's Year 7 staying in this area before school, at break and at lunch.
So when they move around the building, I know this isn't particularly easy to see, but on the map there are arrows. So the way that to ensure that the children move around the building safely is that there is a one-way system, so that nobody is crossing on corridors or on staircases. This does mean that it might take your child slightly longer to get to their lesson, but this is all factored in, and we think it's important that we jeopardize that slightly so that we can get everywhere safely.
On the screen now, you'll see our pillars. Now, this is essential to our culture and ethos as a community. So every single student and every single staff member across our community knows our pillars. So that when we are having celebratory conversations with our students, these are the 6 pillars that we are referring to. So that is good effort, excellent teamwork, community, enthusiasm, commitment, and independence. it's really important that we also acknowledge when students have got it right and that we celebrate those positive moments. If they've been involved in supporting students around the community, maybe supporting families at home, they've demonstrated our pillar values and they deserve to be celebrated for that. So we put onto the system positive points, and routinely the students are rewarded. Prior to COVID, we would be doing things like going on trips and having special events in school, and we hope to return to that as soon as possible. But I think it's really important that we understand that this is part of a bigger positive reinforcement. So what we want to do is for students to be aware of how to make good choices, and that good choices should eventually then become habit.
At the beginning of the year, we also made a real point of training our staff and ensuring that our staff were looking for the positives in all of your child's behaviours and making sure that we really catch them getting it right. But I do have to make you aware, and I do have to educate you as families on what happens when sometimes people don't get it right. So we believe here at APA that every single child and every single young person deserves the right to a fantastic education. Excellent teaching is what we pride ourselves on here at APA. So we take it very, very seriously if we feel like students are disrupting learning, and we will ensure that disruptive behaviour is dealt with appropriately. Your child comes into our care to learn, and if we allow disruptive behaviour to happen, we are not supporting the ethos that the most important thing day to day is that they learn. So in front of you is a behaviour flow chart, but I just wanted to kind of talk you through very quickly. Our staff, again, have been trained very thoroughly on how to deal with behaviour like this. And despite need of any different child and every single different child's attitude to learning, our staff have been trained on how to have the least invasive approach when dealing with disruptive behaviour. So before being given a formal warning, teachers may intervene subtly by asking them to be quiet or tapping on a table or just making eye contact. Following that, they get a warning, which is a C1. Their second warning is a C2, and they will be asked to come back for a detention. And then if it gets as bad as this, but hopefully it won't for any of your children, if they get to a C3, they are removed from their lesson and picked up by a member of senior leadership team and then given an hour's detention. As I said, the most important thing is that all of your children have access to a fantastic education. And here at APA, our teachers are excellent. So we would be doing you as families a disservice if we allowed disruptive behaviour to happen. I'd now just like to quickly talk you through homework. Obviously, homework when you come to a secondary school is so different and so big and so important that we just like to talk you through kind of how it works here. We are going to send out a guide, and you will be getting more information on homework. So, and I know there might be a lot of questions about Teams, but just to let you know that moving forward now, all homework that your children is set is on Microsoft Teams. And from the fantastic turnout that we've got this evening, it's really clear that you are able to work Teams, whether it's your Teams or your child's Teams, but all of the homework is set on there. Your child will get every subject once a week, and they will have a week to complete each homework. Some of the homework will be online, and they may have to do a quiz or an online assignment, and some will be on paper. So it is quite important that you check in with your child as to whether the work that's expected to be handed in is a booklet or a worksheet in their book. Oh, 1 second. Whether it's a worksheet in their book or if it's online, either way, it's quite important that you check in with them what their homework is. Excuse us while we just get back to the slide. Here we are. The final thing is that the due date is really important. The date that the homework is due is what you really need to be looking at. So you need to be checking that your child's homework is done, obviously, pre the due date. And then finally, I've written, don't forget to hand it in. So on Teams, and I'm sure your child will have spoken to you about this, it's really important to click the button hand in or turn it in so that the teachers know that that work has been completed.
In support of that and the positive points and negative points and the C system, we have a brilliant tool, which is My Child at School. My Child at School is available as an app. And I believe it's also available online, but I would encourage all of you to have downloaded My Child at School now. If it's one thing that you go away and do this evening, please make sure that you do that. My Child at School is brilliant for providing information and live updates of your child's day at school. It's really important for informing those conversations beyond how was your day and maybe your child might say good. Instead of that, you can have a far more informed conversation talking about the art lesson where they received a positive point for commitment, and then maybe have some more challenging conversations around why did you get a negative point in this lesson. And that really helps tie school and home together, and it's a very powerful tool in supporting these young people in getting the education they so desperately deserve.
We're now just going to go on and talk to you quite quickly, but again, this presentation is recorded and sent out to you, about the curriculum. So Mr. Calvin's going to quickly talk you through what's going on in English until Christmas in the curriculum, and then I will talk to you a bit about maths.
So Year 7 English, like all subjects, are designed to prepare students for the GCSE exams at the end of Year 11. So everything that we're teaching them in Year 7 is building towards the skills and knowledge they will need at the end of Year 11. So the first thing you really need to know is that there are 5 lessons of English a week. These are split between 4 literature lessons a week on the Midnight Zoo, which is the text we're currently studying, and 1 language lesson a week, which is developing writing skills and focusing on word choices and varying sentence structures. As a part of the literature lessons, there'll be 1 reading lesson a week with students reading the Midnight Zoo and being assessed on their fluency and comprehension. The 3 remaining lessons will be focusing on the development of student analysis and close reading skills based on the reading of Midnight Zoo. We then have to consider assessing the students and parental support. What can you do to ensure your child's success in English at school? Well, student assessment is knowledge-based assessment quizzes to identify gaps in their knowledge and skills. So we're just checking in routinely to make sure that everything that the students need to know, they do know. This ultimately builds towards what we call a big write, which is developing students' ability to write in extended responses and test their creative writing skills. Big writes are how we check and assess how well students are able to write about what they have learned. Now, in terms of supporting at home, please ensure that students are logging on and completing their homework to the best of their ability on Microsoft Teams. As we all know, learning does not just take place inside the classroom, and it's really important that students are held accountable for the work they're doing outside of the classroom. Please also encourage reading for pleasure at home. This can be done independently by the student or collaboratively with students reading the text to you or to siblings and giving them feedback. To that end, all students in Year 7 have been given a reading journal or a reading report. Please ask the students to show you this each week and get them to read to you if they can, and ask them about what they've read, as this challenges them and prepares them, like I say, for the GCSEs at the end of Year 11.
Great, thank you, sir. I'm now just going to talk a little bit about maths mastery. So the way that maths is taught in Year 7 is through a programme called Maths Mastery, and the mission of Maths Mastery is to enable all learners to enjoy and succeed in mathematics. On top of that, our maths department's own mission statement is to provide learners with a deep conceptual understanding of mathematical principles, the ability to confidently communicate in precise mathematical language, and become mathematical thinkers. This is for you to have a look at what's happening so far, and what's happening moving forward in the maths curriculum is on the screen. So it goes through autumn half term 1 and then autumn half term 2. There is a connection between topics that overlap. If you could just take a moment to look at those. Can I ask that you do not try and control the slideshow, please, because it's making it quite difficult for us to keep on top of it. Moving forward, how will they be assessed? So the assessment in maths, like in English, like in all subjects, is continuous. From the beginning of every lesson, teachers are assessing what their pupils are or are not understanding. They use this to scaffold each segment of the lesson. So if your maths teacher thinks that you might not be understanding something, they will be going through it and helping you correct that misunderstanding. Then finally, and I think the most important part, is how can I support my child at home? We want to be able to educate you as families on how you can support them, because we're well aware that this may be alien to some families and new, and you might not have done maths in a while. So the main thing for us is to be encouraging. As Mr. Rowe, the head of maths, has written, maths may not have been your favourite subject at school, but we believe everyone can improve on anything through hard work. The Oak National Academy, which is something I'm sure as families you may have heard about during lockdown, have been aligned with our curriculum and schemes of work, so you can use those if you need any more support. Again, there's a link here, and we will send this out when we send out the presentation at the end. And then Hegarty Maths is how they will be set their homework, but it can also be used independently to do extra work.
So to talk to you again about the APA 10 a day. Now, this is what we have asked that students bring in every single day and ensures that they are able to learn and ensures they get the education that we are trying to roll out to them. Sorry, 1 second. Again, I'm sure, and I think we're all getting used to this, but if we could ask you to please not try and take control of the presentation. Thanks for that. So every day we expect the students to have 2 blue or black pens, a pencil, a ruler, a green pen for corrections in the lesson, a scientific calculator. That's important as that allows them to do the complex maths problems that they're needing to do in maths. Their independence card, which doubles with their usernames and passwords, as well as their weekly timetable, a reading book, a rubber, and a sharpener. Now, we also have a new addition to the equipment APA 10 a day, which is the whiteboard. Now, given the restrictions that we face now as teachers in the classroom, not being able to spend as much time as we would like walking around the room and spending time one-on-one looking at students' work, the whiteboards have become fundamental to our teaching practice here at APA. It's a really great tool for us as teachers to be able to check in on students without having to walk around the classroom. Every single student was given a whiteboard pen and a whiteboard at the start of this term, and it is essential, like every other piece of equipment, that they have it each day. We must make sure that they have that each day. Now, I have said to students that their equipment is their responsibility, and it is, but we would really appreciate your support in checking the students' equipment before they come to school, perhaps the day before, ensuring they're ready to start the next day well.
So not only is equipment important, but in the same vein, we really do pride ourselves here at APA on our uniform. So I've written at the top there, uniform is a symbol of equality, identity, and allegiance to our academy's culture and ethos. And I've shown 2 pictures here, and these are 2 Year 10 students, of how to get it right. It is in our uniform policy, but it's really important for us that the students pride themselves on looking smart and representing our academy, not just in and around the building and in the playground, but obviously when they go out into the community. A little bit of housekeeping in terms of, as the weather's changing, just to remind you that your child's coat that they can bring in must be dark, neutral colours and plain. So I've written there black, navy, grey and dark green. Can I also ask that you send your child into school with a waterproof coat? I would actually like you to do that moving forward. Just kind of rolled up in their bag would be great, because who knows with the weather at the moment. It would also be really, really helpful if you could send them in with an umbrella as well. Before we move on to take any questions, I spoke to some students. I managed to put together a little bit of a diary, and I thought it would be nice for me to talk you through what a day in the life of your child looks like. So at 8:10, Miss McMillian is on the gate again and checks that I have my lanyard and my uniform is ready for the day. At 8:15, I arrive at the elephant playground, go to my bubble and catch up with my friends. At 8:29, the bell goes and I move to my line quickly and make sure my uniform and equipment is ready whilst I stand in silence. Then we'll go to tutor time, walking in silence on the left. At 8:50, tutor time has finished and I loved practicing my numeracy as a class. Now I will follow the one-way system to get to my double art lesson. At 8:25, yes, it's break and it's our day to eat in the canteen. On Mondays and Thursdays, I can get break from the canteen. Otherwise, I need to bring in food. At break, we can chat to our friends, play football and talk to the teachers who are there to keep us safe. At 8:45, line up again to make sure that I'm settled and ready for double English. At 12:20, it's lunchtime. We're lucky as year 7 as we get to go into the canteen first. If we want to play football, we have to eat our lunch first, then play. If we don't want to play football, there are house events and lots of people to talk to. At 1:39, when the bell rings, I make sure that I have my bag on my back. That should be bag on my back, apologies, and check my uniform again. This afternoon we have double French and I want to make sure I learn all the day long. At 2:50, we're brought down to the playground at the end of the day to line up in our tutor groups. Mr. Cavan and Miss Bucock are there and sometimes give us notices and take us to detention. And then finally at 3 o'clock, we are dismissed via the elephant playground gate and go straight home. So there's just a little insight for you into a day in the life of a year 7. So what's going to happen now?
I think I've got a question there in the chat about my child at school, so it might be worth going back to my child at school just to clarify that. Yes, please. Thank you, Miss. My apologies. I will go through my child at school one more time, and hopefully that will clarify some questions we are taking. In the first instance, just while we're waiting for the slide, can I just remind you that Miss Stone has written to everyone of the username and password. If you already have a child in the academy, so a year 7 with a sibling in the school, it is the same password. So that may be causing some confusion. But just so we're clear, for those that haven't used My Child at School before, it's an app which is linked to our behaviour system. So you can see in real time the positive points that teachers are awarding in a lesson and potentially the negative points that a student may have got in the day for maybe a missing homework or potentially an act of defiance. It's like I say, it's really useful then because you can see as a parent how your child's day at school has gone. And we would like that to inform the conversations that we have with students at home so that when they're going home, they don't think that school has ended at the school gate. They know that the conversations will continue at home, and it's ensuring that the students are accountable for their day at school and we get to celebrate with them.
Okay, so now we are going to take about 15 minutes or so for questions. So I'm going to actually stop sharing the screen. How do I do that? Oh no, here, disconnect. One minute. There we go. So you should just be able to see Mr. Cavan and I now. We would really, really like it and really appreciate it if we could take some questions in the chat. So if we give you a minute to type any questions that you have. I think while we're waiting, there was a question about maths and asking why maths was the level it was at that was being given to your children. I think we have to bear in mind that because of COVID-19 and because of what has happened in society, obviously your children didn't complete their whole time in at year 6. So they did miss a lot of learning. Now, I know that the primaries may have been fantastic with setting work and supporting them at home, but it isn't the same as them being in. So what we want to do is really make sure that they're covering all of the base knowledge. There's no point us teaching them something more difficult if we don't feel like they've got the base knowledge that they need. And then we will build up their knowledge from there. We can see that there's a question about Monday and Thursday for the canteen break. What 8 days are they able to get lunch? So would you like to answer that one?
So every single day, the students are able to go and get lunch from the canteen. It's just simply to manage numbers in the canteen that on Monday and Thursday is our break days. But just to be clear, every single day moving forward, year 7 can go to the canteen to get lunch. And like Ms. McMillian said, we're quite lucky in that we get to go first.
Yeah, so yeah, just to reiterate that, Monday and Thursday is break. That obviously doesn't mean that they can't eat break, but it just means they can't come into the canteen and buy food. But it does mean every day, obviously, we are feeding them for lunch. I've got a question about children who might need extra help. Who do we contact? The first port of call for everything must be the child's tutor. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to show a slide of all of your child's tutors' email addresses, because what needs to happen is that you make contact and you really build a solid relationship with tutors, so that moving forward and after that, we can then pass on information to the appropriate person if we feel like they need support.
And building on that quite nicely, I see there's a question about homework club after school. A brilliant question. I like to see those kind of questions. Yes, we are looking at reintroducing homework club, but as I'm sure you can appreciate, we're currently just trying to navigate the COVID guidelines, because on the one hand, we need to make sure that everyone is off site and going straight home, while we also want to put on after school club. So please bear with us while we try to keep up with the government guidelines. But as soon as we can have homework club after school, I assure you that we will.
I've got a question about tutors letting their tutees' parents know about detentions. Obviously, moving forward, that might not be particularly manageable, because you have to remember that tutors teach, and tutors teach a full timetable. But the reason that we have My Child at School is so that you can log on and you will get a notification as soon as your child gets a negative or a positive point. And as soon as that comes through, you will then know whether they're being kept back at the end of the day.
A question on packed lunches. Can they eat in the canteen? Yes, of course. If you have a packed lunch, you can join us in the canteen. And please do come and have the lunch inside the canteen hall. If there was any confusion, please bring your packed lunch to the canteen if you wish. In respect to lockers, a couple of questions on lockers. Thank you for your patience with this particular issue. It is something that we were trying to work out. However, as we can't have students walking around the building on their own, and with the one-way system, it isn't feasible for lockers to be a thing at the moment. So we're having to ask you to be patient. Again, as soon as we can reintroduce lockers to the student body, we will, but for now, there will not be lockers. And that's just of the risk to crossing bubbles and the making sure that everyone is COVID compliant.
I've got a question about setting. So during the first week of school, your child sat some tests, which are called CATS tests, and NGRT tests, which determine their reading age. We are in the process of finalising those, and they will help to support our choice when it comes to sets. That will probably not happen. Changes will not happen until after half term, because we need to be really, really sure that the changes that we are making are appropriate for your child. We also have to be mindful of that. If we were to change sets, that means breaking the bubble. So half term is a good opportunity for us, because you will be away from your bubble, so that when you are to come back into the academy, if we were to put you into a different group, it wouldn't really matter, because you would have been away from other students.
In respect to My Child at School, I can see there's some questions, a couple of questions on what's a school ID. So just to be really clear on this one, hopefully you can hear me. It is 11342. Okay, so the school ID for My Child at School is 11342. Yes, moving forward as well with maths homework, there will be no more Hegarty maths, and all maths homework will move across to Microsoft Teams.
I also just saw a question about a detention. Can I just make something quite clear? In our behaviour policy and in our homeschool agreement, we will not be letting families know if your child has an hour's detention, because that is what My Child at School is for. It is not feasible for us as an academy to be contacting people daily about 1 hour detentions. So that's why with the My Child at School app, you can monitor that. So if your child doesn't give in homework, you need to have the expectation that they will be spending time with us at the end of the day to catch that up. It will also be logged as a school detention if needs be. Not all negative points do result in a detention, if I just to clarify that as well. Negative points are disruption and defiance points. I will add a slide to this presentation before we send it out to remind you of what that means, but I know that your child will be able to explain to you certain behaviours warrant a negative point, other behaviours warrant a detention. The main reason that detentions happen are for no homework, being late in the morning, even by 30 seconds, or being removed from a lesson.
And in relation to events that we have coming up, there will be some house events, which is a really exciting time. Hopefully the students have spoken to you already about the house event we hosted when it was slightly better weather. There was a bingo taking place and all of the students seemed to really enjoy that. But things like sports, house events and competitions and quizzes are all coming up in the diary, so please stay tuned for more of that.
We're just getting a question together about teams.
In relation to the, sorry miss, in relation to the My Child at School usernames and passwords, moving forward, your tutor, or your child's tutor I should say, will be the best person to ask for usernames and ID. Sorry, usernames, passwords and the school ID. So if you're confused about any of that, please make sure that you email the tutors, and there's a slide at the end of this presentation with all of the tutors' emails.
In terms of logging on to MS Teams so that you can see, and I see that obviously in primary some people had Show My Homework. We also used to have Show My Homework, and I understand that was very handy to monitor your child's homework. The only thing that we can do with Teams is that you just have to log on as your child. You can log on in 2 different devices. You don't have to log on the same device. You can log on as your child on another device so that you can monitor what homework that they have. Another question is how many points get you into a detention? So for SLT detention, which is on a Thursday, it is 4 negative points, which could be defiance or disruption. Defiance being not following rules or not following instructions, disruption being potentially talking in the line or being disruptive in class. So it is 4 points that get you into a detention. We've got a couple more minutes left if anyone has any more questions. Please do keep writing them. Dylan, I've seen your question now about sport 3 times, and I'm pretty sure Mr. Cavan's answered it, which is that we are trying to put together some sports events for you. We're trying to work out, it's okay, don't apologise. We're trying to work out how best to do it to keep you safe, but we are thinking about it, I promise. In terms of the late, if there is a good reason for being late, please could I just ask that you try and contact the tutor to let them know about that reason if there has been an emergency in the morning or if something that we deem appropriate, then please let your tutor know. Obviously they won't be sitting in detention if it is not their fault that they are late.
And equally, if the tutors are quite rightly teaching at that time, Miss Scully, our attendance officer, will be taking all calls and messages on the tutor's behalf. So please do contact Miss Scully for any lates.
I've just seen a question about oh sorry, I just scrolled past it. About SATs. You will not be sitting your SATs, no. You'll be going straight into your year 7 assessments as and when they happen, and the first of those will be at Christmas, I believe. Baseline testing has happened, end of years exams happened, and then there is ongoing classroom assessment. Sorry, we're just putting together some appropriate questions. So just to answer your question about, there's been a question about the bubble for DT and the bubble for PE. We need to remember that the bubbles that they're in are as a year group. They are bubbled as a year group, and then on a smaller scale, in their classes where they spend the majority of their time. Yes, they mix with other pupils for DT and PE, but they are also smaller classes and they are monitored very carefully, in the sense that in PE there is no contact, they don't share equipment, the same that there is in DT. The COVID student protocol is that there are exams. Sorry, just to go back to the bubbling. At break and lunch, it is obviously your child's prerogative who they spend time with, and we can't dictate that, but it is within their year group and within their bubble, so it is perfectly safe.
I've got a question here about seating in class and what classrooms look like, which I imagine you're all wondering as parents. So at the moment, every single desk is positioned to be facing the board or the front of the classroom, with the teacher stood at the front, maintaining a 2-meter distance for the majority of the lesson. So there are short bursts when the teacher will be able to move around the class, give some feedback looking over the shoulder of the students, but in order to meet COVID guidelines, we have to keep this brief to no more than 10 or 15 minutes. So that is how every single class is set up, obviously non-practical subjects with tables facing the front.
There is a question about sharing baseline results. Just so we're clear, those baseline results do not take place as part of our academy assessment. So it is not an English lesson assessment or a maths or a geography. They are external tests that come in, and we don't share those because they are primarily for us, because they help us know your child slightly better. Because obviously we have the predicted SATs results that came from primary, but this gives us a little bit of a clearer idea on their results. Just looking at any more questions.
So in respect to the settings of students, as soon as we have the ability to put the students into sets, which, as Ms. McMillan's explained, will probably be after the half term or a period of a break in this academic year, we can reset the bubbles and potentially move students around. But it won't be until we've had the opportunity to do that we'll be able to make a top set and a middle set and a set that needs more support. So that you'll have to bear with us, but as soon as we can, we will start introducing sets to the year group.
The predicted data that came from primaries should have been shared with you from primaries. We don't have that data. It's not our prerogative to share that data with you, but that should have been shared with you via your primary. I can see that there's a hand up, but to avoid any confusion with noise, could I just ask that you write your questions in the chat?
It was shared, so some people will have it.
It looks like some primaries did share and some primaries didn't. I think that's absolutely fine. If you can contact the primary, you are within your right to ask them of what they put as your child's SATs results. Just a couple more minutes before we share with you our final slides and a little video. There's another question about clubs. We are trying to get clubs up and running, but it's really important that we keep you safe, and it's really important that we keep our staff safe. So we're working out a way of how we can do that, because you would have to do it remaining in your bubble. I think what we're going to do now, if you do have any more questions, you are more than welcome to put those back into the chat. I'm just going to share the final slide with you. Hopefully it won't. If you bear with us, it's just to go through the tutors' email addresses. I know that all of your children have built really, really positive and strong relationships with their tutors, and it's really important that we maintain those and that you maintain them as parents. So these are the email addresses of all of the tutors.
And like we're saying, if you have any questions or your student isn't sure about something, the tutor is really the first point of call. For the next 5 years, they'll be the person that they go to and they ask the questions of. And of course, as you've seen, hopefully here and heard tonight, we are all here to support your students, or our students and your children become so successful. And really, I think it's important that we pass that on to you, is that we are passionate about your child becoming successful, and we will do everything in our power to ensure they are happy, safe and successful at school.
Okay, just before we end, I'm going to stop sharing my screen again. Doesn't have records. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I'd like to show you a video. If you just bear with us. This is a video that we've used to promote the academy, and we thought it'd be nice to share it with you. Yeah, it's okay. There we go, back on us.
Yeah.
Okay, if you bear with us, I'm just going to put this up. Perhaps if it doesn't work, I will put the link to the video into the chat and you can watch it at your discretion. I will do that in a moment. I'm now just going to end. We're going to end the call. Feel free to continue and send messages. Mr. Cavan and I will be here for a few more minutes, but thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being here.
The pleasure's all mine.
And we will see most of you, hopefully all of you, tomorrow. So thank you very much.
It's done.
Done.
Ah, están esperando.
No, we're done. We're done.
Están abajo.
Dylan, what's up?
What's up? Who's talking?
Ahmed,
Ahmed.
you schmuck. Bye.
Thank you.
Don't call me a schmuck, bro.
Yeah.